What's the most satisfying no you've ever given? Story 1. My wife volunteered at a place where she routinely had contact with the public. She met new people all the time, but really clicked with one woman in particular. They went out for coffee, found they had a lot in common, and agreed both couples should see a movie or have dinner or something together. One evening, the woman calls my wife and says something like, "I think we're right near your house. If you're free, we can drop by and our husbands can meet." Sure, we talk for a bit. I can see why my wife gets along with the woman so well, and then suddenly, the guy hands me some kind of brochure. It's Amway. By another name, one of the spin-off companies. Nope. Sure, cool, just take a look, okay? Next day, the woman calls again. "Hey, the regional manager happens to be in town. He's a really great person, and I think you should meet him, and you can tell him what you think of the stuff we showed you." Nope. I'll put everything you left me outside my door if you need it. We're not interested, and there's nothing to talk about. Half an hour later, the doorbell rings, and the manager, who I have never met before, finds our door unlocked and walks in, followed by our new friends. "I don't really think you understand the opportunity you're passing up here." I say the thing that every homeowner should say at least once. Get the frick out of my house. You don't need to be rude about it. You haven't heard me saying no yet, so obviously I do. They skulked out, and that was that. Greatest no I have ever uttered. I do feel bad for the people roped into those MLM scams because they are victims too. However, if you start pestering someone or barging into their house like that, I no longer feel bad for you. Good on you for kicking them out. Story 2. I'm a small-time landlord. When I was just getting into things, I made some bad mistakes. The neighbor of one of my properties is a very friendly guy, and when I was doing renovations, would constantly pop over to chat. Turns out his son and his girlfriend are looking for a place to live. Great. Saves me the trouble of having to hunt down a renter, I thought. I run a background check, and there are some red flags, but nothing they can't plausibly explain. They spent the next several months putting me through heck. They never paid their rent on time, and towards the end, didn't pay up at all. They trashed the house. There was little in the way of permanent damage, but it was absolutely filthy. They ground cigarette butts into the carpet and wrote "booty" on the side of the tub, etched it in, and went over it in nail polish. I ended up evicting them and getting a judgment against them. I figured I'd never collect and never hear from them. Fast forward 2 years, the house is empty, I just had a tenant leave and was about to start doing turnover. My phone goes off one day. It's my former tenant. His girlfriend left him, he's back living at home, and he really wants a place to stay. Not on your fricking life. Story 3. After my grandfather died, we had the usual things where people come out of the woodwork because they think they're entitled to some part of the leftovers. So I went to my bank to deposit some cash in my account like usual, and my grandfather's financial advisor was there. She recognized me and asked if she could talk to me, and she began trying to butter me up into accepting her proposal that we liquidate absolutely everything in the estate. This meant that I'd lose my car, the roof over my head, and my mom would lose her car as well, as that was also under the estate. Considering this was right after my grandfather died, I just knew there was an ulterior motive, so I said no. As the last surviving member of that side of the family who had control over the fate of my grandfather's estate, I wasn't about to risk losing everything. She got all angry and told me I was being a fool, but I doubled down on my decision and told her that they could have everything over my dead body. Turned out to be a smart decision because some lawyers got to my mentally disabled aunt, long story, and took pretty much all of the cash in the estate, leaving, you guessed it, all the property that we chose not to liquidate. The conspiracy theorist in me wants to believe the cogs were turning for my aunt's lawsuit way before I ever knew about it, and the advisor was paid off or something by these lawyers so they could get more of the stuff they shouldn't have. Thankfully, she was relieved of her job not long after that. Just knowing in hindsight that I stopped a lot of damage / fricking myself over by telling that butt hat to frick off with her boneheaded proposal makes it feel all the more satisfying. Anyone who attempts to benefit in gross ways right after a family has lost someone is just kind of loathsome to me. Like, I get it, you work in the bank and deal with finances, but if you're pulling crap like this right after this family lost someone, you're a real piece of duty in my book. Story 4. I was a restaurant manager in a hotel years ago. I was called to the bar as one of the bartenders had made the call to stop serving a group of guys. These guys were celebrating one member of the group's wedding, happening the next day. The bartender pointed out the man who wanted to speak with me. The man engaged me in a pretty reasonable conversation and didn't seem intoxicated to my very practiced eye. He used a whole range of persuasive tactics. He appealed to my empathy, apologized for any prior behavior, promised to keep his friends under control, and finally he showed me his badge, proving that he was an off-duty police officer. Even though it was policy to always support staff who make the "no more booze for you" call, I was wavering. The guy was super nice. Just when I'm about to relent and tell my bartender to serve the group another round, the groom leans over to me and yells, "Hey, sea-sucker, give me another friggin' drink." The guy who had been pleading his case and I both started laughing immediately. "So, that's pretty much it, right?" He continued to laugh. "I'm afraid so, sir. You gentlemen have a good night, and best wishes on your marriage, sir." I love this one. Just as you're doubting yourself, you get all the reinforcement you could possibly need. Also, it sounds like the group definitely sent over the right representative to plead the case. I'm imagining an alternate universe where the "hey, sea-sucker" guy was the one trying to convince you. Hey, listen, you piece of crap. We're not even that drunk. You know it's time for a wedding tomorrow? A wedding. And we're just gonna have one more drink. This guy, he's a cop. He'll arrest your friggin' butt and take you to prison. So give us some drinks now, you wiener. Story 5. Oh man. Okay, so I work for an anime convention. There is an incredible amount of drama and rumors that go around. It is insane. So this was a couple of years ago, and I happened to be waiting for an elevator with two girls who were talking about my convention's future. It's Sunday, it could be a 10 or 15 minute wait, and one of them says, "Oh my god, I am so glad convention is moving back to the Hyatt next year." We weren't. It wasn't big enough to hold us anymore, and it's always better to quash rumors before they have a chance to circulate too much. So I politely say, "Actually, it's going to be here again." I get these obnoxious, know-it-all looks from both of them. One of them goes, "No, it's not. I heard from my friend on security." Oh, so it's a "I know someone" game. But my boss is the owner of the convention. I have held hotel contracts for the next 3 years in my hands. I know where it will be held. But I don't want to pull the "I know someone higher up than you" crap. That's petty. So instead I say, "Well, why don't you email in and settle this for us? We've got the time." So she pulls out her phone, goes to our website, finds the contact page, and starts typing out an email. She hits send. A few seconds later, my phone beeps. I've got a new email. Open it. It's clearly from her. It says, "Convention is moving back to the Hyatt next year, right?" I type back, "No," and hit send. Most satisfying no by a long shot. Dang, that's actually really bad A. I love how you didn't want to be petty, so you pulled that move instead. No shade, I would have done the same thing, because the alternative could have just resulted in more arguing and whatnot. Best to just pull that finisher as quickly as possible. Story 6. Many years ago, I had serious problems asserting myself and would be walked all over as a result. One day, my friend asked me to return snowshoes off a store she rented them from on my way home from work. I obliged and found out when I went to return them that there was a significant late fee on them and was forced to pay it. I then got in my car, drove off, and cried, not knowing if my friend would pay me back and also feeling like, once again, I didn't stand my own. That's when it finally dawned on me that this was a perfect opportunity to try asserting myself as I had been learning to do in counseling. I turned my car around and returned to the store demanding my money back. I even had to speak to the manager, but eventually they complied and returned my money to me. How they arranged the payment with my friend was their problem, not mine. It seems like such a small no, but it marked the turning point for me when I started standing up for myself. The effect has snowballed, and since then, I have a substantially happier life and am very clear about my boundaries and my expectation that they be respected. I generally have no problem saying no and would describe myself as an assertive person. Hell yes! This is what I like to hear, and something I needed to hear myself years ago. I still struggle with just trying to please people and being walked all over at times because I want to help people and have people like me. But folks, down that path lies ruin. Learn to say no, set boundaries, and you'll be much, much happier in the long run. Story 7. Recently, I'm a paramedic in a major city. On a particularly busy day, we get dispatched to a cardiac arrest. We fly over there in about 6 minutes through heavy traffic. To give you some context, that is a segment 1 priority of 8. This gets an EMS supervisor, police, hopefully with an AED, fire engine company, EMTs, and us, paramedics. When we get there, a coworker greets us and tells us the patient's leg has been hurting for 2 days. Wait, what? Turns out they waited 40 minutes for an ambulance because it was very busy and the other units were handling sicker people, like people in an actual cardiac arrest, and the caller/friend took it upon herself to say the patient was now dead, just to get us there faster. Because it was Friday and they were closing soon. The satisfying no? After she admitted to us what happened, after all 12 of us came upstairs to resuscitate the patient, she had the gall to ask to ride with us to the hospital. Best, no, absolutely not, call a cab, ever. She looked so sad and shocked, and the PT had sciatica, by the way. We did nothing but take vitals, and the hospital was less than a mile away. Deleted. Don't lie to the ambulance. What the hell? Your leg hurt and you wanted to get there faster, so you faked cardiac arrest. I feel like if someone does something like that and gets driven in, then on their way out, they get informed of any other people who may have died because they tied up the ambulances like that. Ugh. Story 8. I have difficulty standing up to bad employers, butthole managers, people with no concept of logistics, etc. It's more or less a result of spending a long time in hospitality. I switched industries to do construction in the last year, went back to school to learn the basics of several trades. I took this crappy concrete job I found online. The guy who runs the company is a one-guy operation, which isn't super uncommon where I live. He basically said he just hires 3 people for his busy season before it snows. I told him I don't know a whole lot about concrete other than some brickwork, and he was okay with it. Less than a week into the job, this guy is berating me and calling me an idiot every 10 minutes, completely humiliating me whenever I ask for clarification on tasks, and telling me his 8-year-old son knows how to drive and I must be brain dead to not. He asks if I'm on lithium for making a mistake on the first try for doing something, refacing concrete. Everything set this psycho off. I feared for my own safety sometimes. He does this for another week and a half, and somehow I put up with it. We went back to the city, 7-hour drive, for a day off, and I offered my direct deposit information, and he said, no, just bring it the next day when we go back out of town. I said, no, I won't be returning. I can't deal with your ineffective communication and poor managing skills. He just started screaming that I wasn't as mechanically inclined as he thought, and that I'm a terrible person that will never succeed at anything. I honestly think he needed a certified concrete finisher, and that's his own fault for just seeking out people with no experience to treat them like a subhuman parasite. But if he actually got a certified concrete finisher, then he would have to pay certified concrete finisher prices. Why pay for what you need when you can pay less and be angry when it isn't what you need? Story 9. I was working in a toxic, limiting environment, wearing more hats than a British royal with new responsibilities popping up every day. I would never say no because I enjoyed the challenge. However, when I pointed out my value but received a paltry increase, I decided to leave. I got a job offer that would basically double my salary and delivered my resignation letter. And all heck broke loose. A group of them took me out to lunch as a sort of intervention and basically did what they did best. Delivered the hard sell. I'm integral to the business. They'll open up a career advancement path for me if I'll just hang in there, yada yada yada. Then they made their counter-offer knowing full well how much my offer was for and frickin' lowballed me. Like I couldn't do simple math and would be swayed by a fancy lunch and the romantic idea of company loyalty. It's the best we can do, just wasn't good enough. I got pulled aside by just about every single higher-up over the next 2 weeks and they all progressively sweetened the pot. I stood firm. Easiest no's of my life. I actually left that job with a sense of survivor's guilt about the people I left behind. Company loyalty goes both ways, and if they want you to stay and get all that, they need to earn that crap first. Good on you for sticking to your guns. I've been in similar situations where I had to leave a job because the $8 an hour they were paying me was enough to cover food or rent. When I told them I quit, they offered me a 25-cent raise. One of the few times I've ever laughed in a boss's face. Please leave your story in the comments. I would love to make a video on them in the future. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe.